it's me, Penny. Welcome back to my office here. I was going to leave this video as just a performance, but then I thought, no, I have to say something about this bizarre musical experience you just had. It certainly was bizarre to me, and while I'm a little bit reluctant to go out to the world on the public stage like this and express this opinion, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to say that I prefer the backwards version. Shocking, I know, but it's so thrilling and exciting to play this piece, backwards or forwards, honestly. And I did play this piece forwards in its proper original fashion. That video I made last year, and I'll put a link to it up here in a card for you to check out. I was pleased with that performance, and I played that one quite fast, though I think perhaps not quite as fast as I played this one today. And this is such a strange little piece. You know, when you hear, when the word little precedes the title of a piece, it's sort of, it makes you think perhaps less of the piece, that it's not, you know, mighty and bold and with powerful thoughts to communicate. But my goodness, with Bach, that is just completely not the case at all. And while this Little Prelude in C minor, BWV 999, is totally sight readable, I'm sure that even a very good intermediate player could sight read this piece. However, to play this piece really fast is extremely difficult, as I found. Rather reminiscent of, variation 26 of the Goldberg variations with the running sextuplets. This piece is very, very difficult to play fast because the whole piece, it's only 43 bars long. The whole piece is made up of the same rhythm over and over and over again. And that rhythm is simply, and as I always like to say, the rhythm in Bach is oftentimes not the most inventive or exciting, but look at what makes it exciting. We have these broken chords, mostly triads, some diminished seventh chords, and then many delicious moments of dissonance throughout the piece. But the changing register and texture and the intervals, the contour of the intervals, and the way it's split between the hands too. When I clap it, it sounds very simplistic. But you can see on the sheet music that at the end of each bar, or when playing backwards, at the front of each bar, the hands are alternating. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Or right, left, this kind of thing. And that is very, very hard to do. Because the hands, at least my hands anyway, they want to go in sync so that they're going down at the same time. But to keep them totally precise and alternating is very difficult to do. And I had a wonderful time with this piece. I have been taking some pieces of Bach, not too many, but hopefully I can do some more. I took the Invention number 14 in B flat major, a short passage from that, where the hands were completely together with the same rhythm, moving in consecutive thirds. I played that backwards and also with switched hands, and then switched hands backwards. And the music works. It's amazing. And it works in this piece. I was so happy to discover, and I've got some other ideas for another piece in particular that I want to try this with. And let me tell you, it's really not difficult to write this music out backwards. It's just more tedious than anything. Is it fun? Not at all. not at all. It's like when you do a jigsaw puzzle. That's we in our family we like jigsaw puzzles. My mom and I, my grandparents too, and we always went for the 500 piece one because it was manageable. Occasionally 750, but when you get to the 1,000 piece, and it's a picture of sky, like the cover of this book, and you got to sort through, hundreds of pieces that all look the same. Um, that part is no fun. And I liken this activity of writing this music out backwards to sorting out sky jigsaw puzzle pieces. But fortunately, it's a short piece. I'm not about to do this for a long piece. I have other more important things to do. But it was really worthwhile. Once I stuck it out and got through the trenches, musical trenches of writing this, notating it, uh, then began the fun experience of playing through. I felt like some sort of mad musical scientist, like, is this going to work? Is this going to sound funky and cool? And much to my delight, it did, or it does. I think you may hate it, but and I'm okay with that actually. I think what I want to do with my performances is to communicate something, even if that means it riles someone, kind of to a point of, they have to tell me so. I'm okay with that. I want to create some sort of a reaction to a performance, and but I would never perform anything that I wasn't totally convinced and in love with. And I'm in love with this backwards or Bachwards version, as I like to call it. And this is my notation, 43 bars, so almost 2.5 pages of manuscript here. And starting with measure 43, that's my measure 1, measure 43. And then going backwards, 43, 42, 41, 40, 39, etc., etc., all the way to the last bar of the piece, measure 1. Now, this is so strange. When you play this rhythm backwards, it's the exact same forward. So I think that's partly why this works. But there are some unique things about this piece that I have to point out. And that is, and I'm speaking of its original form here, of course it's in C minor, it's in 3/4 time, but what is so peculiar and kind of shocking about it is that it ends in the dominant. The last bar of the piece consists of a G major triad with a fermata, and it's not even occupying the whole bar, it's just a quarter note, so there's 2 beats that are missing. It's very strange. I consulted another score to check that mine wasn't like funky or whatever, but no, that's it. So this piece, it starts firmly in C minor. I mean, that's the first 2 bars. All it is a broken root position C minor triad. The tonic is firmly established C minor, kind of like the Fifth Symphony of Beethoven. C minor, there's no question about it, what key we're in. But at the end of the thing, we're not back in the home key as we're supposed to in this Western tonal music from this period. This is from the early 1720s. 300-year-old music. Can you imagine? The piece of music you just heard was 300 years old. That's bonkers. I mean, granted, I added my Govee neon lights there, but to take that away and, man, it does not sound like 300-year-old music. But this is the most peculiar thing, that it ends in the dominant. So in some ways, playing it backwards was actually a little bit more proper, because I'm ending the piece in the tonic, although we're not getting the tonic to start. So it's just kind of like the inside of a sorcerer's or a witch's cauldron, and like potions and bubbling and all sorts of stuff going on. I mentioned the alternating hands, which is extremely difficult to do at a fast pace. And this piece, I also mentioned, it reminds me of the piano part in the Gretchen am Spinnrade, that song by Franz Schubert. Actually, I remember accompanying some singers at the Eastman School of Music with this song. We all loved this song so much. And I remember the teacher, I didn't have good German diction then. I did take a German diction for singers class. Um, so I was just learning how to pronounce these words. But as an English speaker, you see the title of that song and you think Gretchen. But I always remember the voice teacher saying, not Gretchen, Gretchen, Gretchen. So ever I see that song, I think Gretchen. It sounds so much better. But this frenetic kind of quality to the piece, backwards or forwards, is really exciting. And it reminds me as well of the, now I haven't read the short story, what is it called? The Edgar Allan Poe short story, A Descent into the Maelstrom. A maelstrom is I wrote the definition down here, a situation or state of confused movement or violent turmoil. It's also a powerful whirlpool in the sea or a river. And this is the image that I have in my mind, this confused movement of sound created by this hypnotically repetitive rhythm and these alternating notes at the ends of the bar, between the hands, or going backwards at the front of the bar. And I wanted to create that confused movement, that vortex, that maelstrom. Marshall McLuhan talked about, he loved that story, the Maelstrom by Edgar Allan Poe. And he said that the sailor in Edgar Allan Poe's story saves himself from this maelstrom, this spinning vortex. The sailor saves himself by cooperating with the action of the storm itself. And that was mentioned in this book, McLuhan in Space, Cultural Geography by Richard Cavell. The sailor saves himself by cooperating with the storm. And I feel like that's what the player has to do in pieces like this, where it's just relentlessly and frenetically crazed and electrically charged. And it's in 3/4 time. And I wanted this kind of, this is the movement that my body wants to do when I think of this song, a circular spinning vortex, tornado kind of thing, the maelstrom, where it's not literally a perfect circle, but it's like kind of, angled a little bit. That was the motion I wanted to create through the sound. And it required a lot of movement from my upper body. Not literal, just move in a circle, but kind of a 3-dimensional kind of movement that was assertive, not aggressive, but assertive. And it required a certain placement on the downbeats, and then through the rest of the 2 beats of the bar, a shifting of the body to the other way in this 3-dimensional circular fashion, then back to the next downbeat, this kind of, and so it's the upper body, torso moving, and also the lower body, like the hips, it's really intense to play this piece. And that recording you just heard, I always say that it takes me many times to get a recording I'm pleased with. And there's things I would have liked to do a little bit better, but probably 75 takes at least. And it's quite vigorous. I was absolutely exhausted after that recording session. That took many hours just for that one little short performance. But I just wanted to talk about these things because this piece it's so incredible. This music sounds amazing when it's backwards. In the original, the left hand plays a low note on the downbeat. So that is very reliable. It gives a sense of the bass, the ground under our feet kind of thing. But when you play it backwards, you see that that low bass note in every bar comes at the very end of the bar. So that enhances the excitement. But otherwise, backwards or forwards, it's just broken chords. So it's that placement of the low note on the weak part of the on a weak beat that's quite exciting. And then this spinning quality. There's quite a bit of chromaticism in this little piece. All 12 notes of the chromatic scale are used. And there's some really delicious moments there where we get like a half step in the right hand, a measure 13. I try to overlap the fingers, give a little bit of finger pedal there to create some more color of sound. Measure 8, measure 9, not so much 8, measure 9, the A flat in the bass against the G in the right hand. That's a 7th. That's very delicious. And also what's interesting about this piece, and certainly it goes to major, the dominant major, G major in measure 34. What's also interesting in this piece are the disjunct leaps found in the left hand. And I think those are even more enhanced when it's played backwards. I would encourage you, because this piece, as I say, is very sight readable. So try playing the if you can read my writing, try playing the backwards one and then play the forwards one. I'll link the proper sheet music for the original in the description. It's easy to find on the IMSLP website, but do try it. It's such an experience. And the other thing too in this piece that's unique is the degree of pedal tones. These notes in the bass that are sustained for fairly long periods of time. The first 6 bars, 1, 2, 3, 4, the first 7 bars rather, we have a tonic pedal in the bass, all C. The right hand is doing some other things, but it's that tonic pedal in the bottom, that foundational note in the bottom. There's also, I marked in my pedal tones, there's a D pedal tone. That's the second scale degree of C minor. That is from measure 17 to 22. And then again, from 24 to 32. There's a lot of bars where there's a D in the very base, in the bottommost region of those bars. And then, of course, we have the dominant pedal tone. It's the note G from measure 33 to the end. So there's a lot of use of pedal tones. But in the backwards version, they don't sound like pedal tones. There's just a momentary flash of an instant in time where those notes are audible. And so again, it's like the ground is taken out from under our feet. It's just so wonderful to play this. I just love it. And I think that's everything. Oh, yeah, and also whether you're playing this frontwards or backwards, I wonder what it would sound like with the hands switched. Whether you play this frontward or backwards, the repeated notes in the right hand at the end of each bar, the 2/16 notes, I find it helpful to use fresh fingers. Not every bar necessarily, but as often as possible. Just so, don't play the repeated note with the same finger both times. Change it up. Maybe 2-1 or 1-2, whatever, depending on what's before and what comes after. Because to get those nice and light, you really need a loose wrist. Plus, this body and the lower body are like pulsating and moving to create this maelström, this swirling vortex, tornadic sweep to the sound. And if your wrist is like a brick, and you're using the same finger each time, your musical plane is not going to get off the runway, so to speak. So those are some things to think about, and the Edgar Allan Poe analogy. So I'm going to leave it at that. And thank you for watching. And I hope you're all keeping well. Thank you for subscribing and for your likes and comments. That really is appreciated, and it's actually very, very helpful. Um, yeah. So happy practicing to you, and we'll see you again soon for more performances of Bach's music and practice tips. Take care. Bye bye.